Good afternoon, parents of NorthSouth. Thanks for joining this afternoon, um, with the SMEs here. As you can see, Govind and Arjun are the ones who are behind this information session. Of course, the information session is only for information purposes only. So before we start, I'm going to give some background. Sindhu and Goma are the parents who actually started thinking of this and implementing the History B in North South with the help of their children, Govind and Arjun. And so their input is very, very valuable. Um, like I said, Sindhu Nair and Goma Srinivasan, big parents, and they thought that we should have uh, a history be fashioned, in terms of many other history competitions that is going on in the United States. And we started 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and slowly piloted it. And we are at a position where we can offer it to all the chapters here in the US. Their children, Govind and Arjun, they are the architects here who have participated in many competitions, and they've actually designed the syllabus and helped in developing the questions and what are the things that we need to get tested on. Just to emphasize, what are all the things that Govind and Arjun have achieved? They've achieved many things together, and that's some kind of history, I guess, if I can use that pun. So they've been in the eighth grade History B national champions. JV History B national champion, US History B national champions, History Bowl national champions, varsity, junior varsity as well as regular varsity history bowls, varsity political science B champions, international junior varsity history bowl champions, and international junior varsity history B champion in 2018, and overall history Olympiad gold and silver medalists. So you can see that they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of achievements. And with that, I give control to Arjun, Sindhu, Arjun and Goma.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Goma Srinivasan, and we all live in the Chicagoland area. With me today is Sindhu Nair and Arjun Nageshwaran. Govind had a conflict with a Model UN activity, so he couldn't make it today, but he'll be there for other sessions in the future. So today we wanted to make sure that, I'm not able to, there you go. We want to quickly go over some information again about the History B. We'll start with why History B, right? The importance of history. History allows us to understand our past and the world we live in and help learn from, the past. Provides insight into the cultures, both of our origin, but also of cultures that we may not be so familiar with. And the goal of History B is to generate interest in kids at a very young age to pursue academic excellence in history. It helps them prepare. I know it definitely helps middle school kids prepare for high school curriculum, but also prepares the younger kids for the middle school curriculum. And then also helps people or students compete and succeed both at the regional, national, and international level. So we wanted to give you a quick view into competitions that are conducted outside of NorthSouth Foundation. So there is an organization called International Academic Competitions, and they conduct for elementary, middle, and high school students competitions. For the middle school at the regional, national, and international level, they conduct the National History B. History B is an individual tournament, and History Bowl, which is a team tournament. And for high school students, they have History B, they have US History B, which focuses just on US history, And then this year they introduced the political science B, and these three are individual tournaments, and then History Bowl is again a team tournament at the high school level. Both, the national and regionals are conducted on an annual basis, but the international one is conducted every 2 years, and it's conducted, across the world. They conduct it across the world. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the 2020 tournament got canceled. They're hoping to conduct the next one in 2022. Again, they conduct it for both middle school and high school. And how they've broken it up is, middle school goes up to 8th grade. Then you have junior varsity for 9th and 10th. And then they have varsity for 11th and 12th. And the last time they conducted the International History Olympiad in 2018 was in Berlin. So again, we're hoping that by introducing this for the NorthSouth Foundation, it'll help us build some the skill sets for kids to participate in these broader set of competitions. And I know Anbu went through this, but we have it in our slides. Just to give you an overview, the team consists of Sindhu, myself, Sindhu's son Govind Prabhakar, who's a freshman at Georgetown School of Foreign Service. He graduated from Stevenson High School last year, so he and Arjun were teammates when they came up with this idea. Arjun's currently a senior at Stevenson High School. Both of them have participated in other NorthSouth Foundation competitions like geography, math, etc. And obviously at that point there was no history, and so they felt it was a great idea to introduce the history tournament. And Anbu went through all the accomplishments that they've had at the state level, national level, and even international level. I think one cool part of the international piece was, since both of them are overseas citizens of India, they decided, they had a choice of either representing Illinois or representing Team India. They chose to represent Team India. And so for the bowl, which is a team event, they actually partnered with a student from India, and they won the bowl as Team India. So there was a proud moment for us in Berlin with the kids. So some really cool tournaments, being conducted, and we're hoping this is a small contribution trying to, introduce these tournaments to the kids and also help them develop the skill sets to participate and win some of the tournaments. I will now hand it over to Sindhu to talk about the rules of the tournament.
Thanks, Goma. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So as you already heard, History B is a fairly new contest at NorthSouth. It was introduced in 2018-19 academic year. Last year, the contest was online, like all other contests, which Anbu already explained. So all the general rules of the NorthSouth contest are applicable to History B as well. So we strongly recommend you to get familiarized with the general rules from the website. And I know Anbu already explained in very detail the rules today for the online contest, but still I would recommend, go through the web page so that, and make notes if, any particular point you feel you need to make note of. I'll go through the specific rules of the History B. There are two levels of the History B. One is Junior History B and the other one is Senior History B. The junior level is for grades 1 to 3, and the senior is for grades 4 through 8. In the online contest, there is only one phase actually this year. When we were doing the contest on site, we had two phases, but since everybody is doing online, we are combining it to one phase this year. It will be 30 questions for both junior and senior, and everybody gets the same questions. The difficulty level of the questions progressively increase, and the scores from the later questions will be used for tiebreaker if needed. So for example, in the event of a tie, we first look at the scores from question 25 to 30, And if that's also tie, we look at the scores from question 20 to 25. And likewise. So all these rules are explained in detail in the History B rules section on the website. So please look at the general rules and then also look at the History B rules section. And the questions for the History B are going to be from the categories US history, Indian history, European history, world history, and current events. Arjun will be going over the details of what's covered in each category a little later. There won't be national finals for History B this year since the contest is still pretty new. And our focus at this point is mainly getting more participation at the regional level. I mean, this year it's all online. So when the pandemic is over, again, we like to focus on getting more participants at the regional level before offering the nationals. Could you go to the next slide, Kama? Yeah, so this is the section on the website where you will be able to go to the history base. So this is a main online contacts page, and you can see the link at the bottom of the page for history. So you can click on that link to go to the specific section for history, which will have the rules, the syllabus, and how to prepare, and a bunch of sample questions and frequently asked questions. So please get familiarized with that with your student. And if the students are in middle school, I'm sure they can do it by themselves. So it's very important to go through the preparation material and the syllabus for preparing for the competition. So with that, I will turn it over to Arjun for going over the categories and explain in detail.
Hello, I'm Arjun. So for the competition, it's split into categories of U.S. history, current events, world history, Indian history, and European history. The reason that Indian history is emphasized is because NorthSouth Foundation wants to make sure that kids stay in touch with their roots and they don't forget about Indian history as well, since that is something that won't be covered by their schools, and it's a good way of keeping in touch with your culture. And current events, even though it isn't strictly history, it'll try to tie with historical knowledge so people can better understand the world they live in now. So for U.S. history, the different subtopics you can study in are colonial period. So that is before the United States became a nation, when it was still the colonies, or even before when the Native Americans were living here. And then after we gained independence, the pre-Civil War era. So the formative experiences of how we became a nation and like the struggles with slavery and other issues before the Civil War. Then Reconstruction and Progressive Era, how the United States sort of became a new nation after the Civil War and had to deal with other issues regarding discrimination, and the Progressive Era, where people try to make a difference with causes like women's suffrage. And then after that, turning into the mid 20th century, early to mid 20th century, the World War I, and then after the interwar period and World War II. And then the more modern aspect of US history for like the civil rights movement and the Cold War. And then anything after that would just fall into US current events. So for the current events category, there'll be a mix of Indian current events, world current events, US current events. And the current events will mostly be things like elections, conflicts, agreements, so things that are still historically significant, but just if you're paying attention to the news and if you can know what's going around in the world, that category would be covered. Afterwards comes world history, which is split across the different regions of the world. So there would like the native history would fall into the colonial period of US history, but other early American civilizations, like the Incas or the Aztecs, would be in pre-Columbian American history. There's also ancient history, so ancient Rome, ancient Greece, Babylon, all these early civilizations before the world reached the more modern era. East Asian history covers China, Japan, South Korea, North Korea as the Southeast. So that aspect of history would be covered since they would go under Indian history. Indian history is a separate category. There's also African history. There's colonial era when the European countries began to colonize these countries across the world. And then again, the post-World War period, similar to the Cold War era for US history. For Indian history, it stretches from ancient India, so the ancient civilizations like Indus River Valley, all the way to modern India post-independence. So it spans medieval India, colonial India when they were under British rule, the beginning of the Republic of India, and the various major empires across Indian history like Mughal dynasty or the Chola Empire, etc. And finally, European history. So this will things from the ancient Rome and other aspects of that would fall under ancient history, but European history would go from medieval Europe, the age of exploration when Europeans began to settle and explore the world, and then colonization, which followed. And then on the continent, the Enlightenment period and the Napoleonic period afterwards. So French Revolution would be around this era, and then the aftermath, the Napoleonic period all the way to the First World War. And then similar to colonization, the period of imperialism and how that occurred during these time periods as well. And finally, the world wars and interwar period, similar to the era in the US history. So it talks about more of the conflict on the continent and how countries struggled to deal with it. And the more modern aspect of European history would be covered by the Cold War. Anything after that, anything that's more in the last 10 years would be in the European section of current events. So for preparation material, so history.com has documentaries and has different articles where people can read about different historical events and get a good idea. The NAQT, which runs national Quiz Bowl tournaments, they have you gotta know for different categories, not just history, but you can filter by category to get history specific you gotta know lists. And you gotta know list basically takes a specific topic. So one topic might be like major European dynasties, and it gives you a list of some like dynasties, for example, in that list you have to know and a brief summary of facts. And then based on what is listed you got to know, you can research it more in depth later. The National History Beat, as was mentioned earlier, they run competitions beyond what is offered by NorthSouth Foundation. And there you can see past packets, and those packets tend to emphasize what is important in history. So if you read enough of those packets, you'll have a good idea of sort of the canon of what you should know about history. Some books that you might want to read to get more of a survey text experience, in that they're more general rather than go in depth, are Illustrated History of the World, Atlas of World History, and Encyclopedia of World History. And beyond those books, if you learn better from videos, you can take Crash Course. Crash Course basically makes in-depth series about different aspects of the curriculum, and they have a series on world history and a series on US history. And by watching those videos, you should have a good idea as well.
Okay, Sindhu, you want to take the next part?
Yeah, sure. Okay, why don't we go through some sample questions now? This is for Junior History B. Which country was invaded by Nazi Germany in September 1939 to begin the Great War? Okay, the answer is Poland. So we'll take a look at another question. Who is the 46th President of the United States of America? Okay, I hope you all know the answer, and it's Joe Biden. He's the 46th President who just sworn in last week before last week? Yeah, just 10 days. Okay, we'll take a look at a couple of sample questions for Senior History B. So the Senior History B students, you can put your answer now. Which member of the Indian National Congress Party represents the Wayanad constituency after losing the Amethi seat that his family had held for 4 decades to Smriti Irani in 2019? Okay, the answer to that is Rahul Gandhi. So it's the Nehru family who held the Amethi seat for 4 decades. And then Rahul Gandhi lost that seat and he had contested in another seat in Wayanad. So basically, when you hear something, like you may be reading about the election and who won and all that in the news. So then that sparks an interest in going and researching more about it. That's how you learn more. Next question. Thomas Sankara was a leader of which country formerly known as Upper Volta? It is Burkina Faso. So, keep reading your books and keep reading news. Then, whatever you don't know, go and research more. That's how you learn. We will go into any questions you may have.
So they're still asking about the online workshop. So that's pending with you. Starting out, how do we start out to teach these to a first grader? That's a parent asking.
So I would say, get some picture books, which doesn't have a lot of information, but that will spark the interest in the kid. So starting with books that are not explaining a lot of things, but just maybe a US president's book. Get a book with pictures of presidents and explaining little bit about each president. That will get the kid interested. And then when the student is or the kid is done with that book, they're probably going to ask for more similar books. Then you can get maybe what happened in America, a little more detailed book. So that's how the kids generate interest.
Good point.
The one thing Arjun just mentioned was when he was much younger, he would watch a lot of brain pop videos to learn this.
Which video is that again?
Brain pop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a website. There is a Brain Pop Junior and Brain Pop. So junior is first grade to third grade generally. So there are a lot of short videos. That's the best part of those videos. It's just 3-4 minutes, and in all subjects actually.
Okay. Not just history. Good.
Yeah, all subjects.
Awesome. Other question I can answer, is it going to be a single choice question or a multiple choice question? The online contest is going to be multiple choice question. So you don't have to worry about D or Rahul Gandhi. You just need to click on the right answer. That will get registered. So you don't have to worry about it.
But there'll be only one right question, one right answer for each question. There's no, checkbox where you pick 2 or more or anything.
2 or more. Yeah, that's correct. And there are no negative marks. We do not provide or do negative marks in NorthSouth. So don't worry. You can take a educated guess sometimes. Goma, Sindhu, and Arjun, any final words you want to give to the parents? What they need to be looking forward?
My only thing is, this. Let's make this a fun activity for the kids, right? I mean, even though it's a competition, it has to be something that the kids really enjoy. So no pressure. Let them come have fun, study for fun, and and especially for the really young kids, that's when they start learning to see what they are interested in. Right? You may start them out in multiple subjects, and some may choose to do, have more interest in history. Some may choose to have more interest in math, and let them just follow their passion and follow what they like. It was not like I don't think we ever told Govind and Arjun that you got to do history, right? They tried a whole bunch of things, and they both individually picked history, and they decided to pursue that, more.
Great.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would just add that, along the same lines, whatever the kids are interested in, get them resources for what they like. Because we as parents, we may think, oh, I like my kid to be a mathematician or scientist, but then they may be interested in something else. So find their interest and get them resources in that interest field. Then they will develop. And then once they are in middle school, they are able to find themselves, and by the time they will know what their real interest is. So when they are really young, get them exposed to different things. Then they will pick what they really like.
Great. Arjun, any final advice for the kids? He's not
Arjun, final advice.
I'd say the most important part is just make sure this is always something that you do out of fun and out of curiosity. So at the beginning, you might be reading things you didn't know about, and at that point you may like have to force yourself a little. But if at any point studying becomes just a chore you're doing just for these competitions or whatever, then it's not worth it. Try to get a genuine interest for history, and that makes the competition much more fun.
Great. Thank you guys for your time. We appreciate all your presentations. And thank you, parents and children, for attending. I think you guys now have an idea of what History B is, what needs to be done, and how you can do the contest.